Thank you. I should say that I'm actually not this year's African Philanthropy Lifetime Achievement Award receiver. I was the first, and after me was Michelle. And there will be a third person announced very soon. But I'm here to express a few ideas, things I have learned in the last 2 days here. And I use the word learn because truly I'm super excited, inspired by so many of the things I've observed and heard from especially the younger generation among us here. I am 73 years old, and so I am 73 years old, and so I belong to that generation that owes the younger generation a lot of apology, because we ate the fruits of independence, we ate the roots of independence, and basically destroyed a lot after independence. And what you are doing, all of you, is truly to bring back the soul, the spirit, the sensibility of African dignity, African independence, and that's ultimately what the African philanthropy sector aims to do. In Ghana, we say, and you respond, yay. And so when I say it, you respond, yay. And it's to push our passion. No, not yet. Cho boy. Cho boy. Cho boy. And it's a call for collaboration, for enthusiasm, for being together. It symbolizes in many ways the Zulu philosophy of Ubuntu. We are together. African philanthropy, as many of you have pointed out, has been there in existence for a long, long time. It's truly embedded in African cultures, African identity, and so on. And in Ghana, we say it's been there since 19 Kojohoho. 19 Kojohoho is a Ghanaian way of saying since time immemorial. And I'll give you a few landmarks in our lifetime or in my lifetime that I think we need to keep in mind going forward. In 1958, I was 8 years old. I was born in colonial Ghana. So 58, I was 8 years old, and I saw it. France organized a referendum in its colonies in Africa, asking if they wanted complete independence, the total end of colonialism, or they wanted to be federations of the state of France. So they will have some degree of independence, but they will really be still governed by France. One country that voted no, all of them voted yes, except Guinea. And what happened then was Guinea suffered unbelievable destructions. The French took off the hospitals, the schools, the electricity, the water supply, everything was destroyed. And Guinea literally was collapsing. And when it happened, this was the time before television, there were radio stations. And when this happened, many of us young kids, children, I was 8 years old, and I remember this so well in my school. School kids started, workers started, professional associations started demonstrating on the streets of Ghana in 1958. October 1958. We demonstrated for days and days and days, and of course, our president at that time, Kwame Nkrumah, was a Pan-Africanist, so he took note of it. And guess what happened? Ghana gave, Nkrumah drew from the reserves of Ghana. Ghana had been independent for only 1 year, since 1957, drew 10 million pounds. Today, 10 million pounds comes to 106 million pounds. Ghana gave Guinea 10 million pounds, and that's how Guinea survived the French destruction. There is a song, and that's one landmark, one sign of cross Africa beyond the community level and the country level, national level, cross Africa philanthropic expression. And there was a song immediately that was created by E.T. Mensah. I gave it to our colleagues at the back handling the technology. I don't know if you can play part of it. It will last, we hear only maybe for half a minute. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Pan-Africa.
Ghana, Guinea, Mali Union has laid down a strong foundation for redemption of Africa, for which we've been strongly fighting.
Ghana, Guinea, Mali,
the nucleus of the great union.
Ghana, Guinea, Mali,
Africa's strongest foundation.
Ghana, Guinea, Mali,
the nucleus of the great union.
Ghana, Guinea, Mali,
has now once been laid forever. First it was Ghana and Guinea, later Ghana, Guinea, Mali. Soon it will be all Africa.
You didn't even hear the most interesting lyrics of it. So what I'll suggest is Google Ghana, Guinea, Mali song. There's only one song, Ghana, Guinea, Mali song. This was the first effort by elected people, leaders in Africa at the national level, to bring Africa together. It preceded the whole idea of the Organization of African Union, which is now AU. Ghana, Guinea, Mali were one country. It was a federation. Unfortunately, the CIA and others, anyway, long story short, That was a landmark. $106 million given to Somalia, given to South Sudan, given to many of these countries that are literally collapsing. You can imagine what would happen. We also know, of course, that official, or rather institutional philanthropy has grown a lot since then in Africa, which has led us to where we are today, where in this room, I was counting yesterday, we have at least 20 philanthropic institutions or individuals in this room. At the height of the Darfur genocide in 2003, guess what? International media didn't really cover it much. But South African philanthropists, ordinary people, I'm not talking of high net worth individuals, not the multimillionaires, ordinary South Africans brought together $1 million to help those in Darfur, in Sudan, who have gone through. In Zimbabwe, you know, of course, the Matabeleland massacres in the early 80s, and I went there at that time. And the Community Foundation for the Western region of Zimbabwe literally saved over 20,000 lives. So there's been a growth, a lot of growth. And so what I'll focus on in the next few minutes, maybe 5, I hope, is the future going forward from here. Because that's the theme of this conference. And I want to use 2 metaphors. The first metaphor was from my grandmother, who shaped my life in many, many ways. She was a farmer, she was a feminist, and she did so much. And once she said to me, as I was growing up, maybe I was about 10 years old, she said, Akwasi, remember this, that we are like nature, that the tree behind there in the bush that you see is in the forest. And the forest is in the tree. So make sure that the tree is always in the forest and the forest is in the tree. And I use that metaphor for philanthropy, African philanthropy, and for what I've observed here. You've got different individuals, researchers, philanthropy professionals, and so on. And each one is a tree. But there is an ecosystem of a forest. And what I see happening here going forward is you are making a forest out of the trees. And making a forest out of the trees has what I call the triple P approach. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of planting, creating new things and platforms for philanthropy, and a lot of pruning. You know, in the forest, you have some ivy leaves and some predators and so on that destroy, and humans who destroy the forest. So what you're doing here for African philanthropy is to really not just be together, making a forest out of the different trees, but to ensure that the forest that ecosystem of African philanthropy is healthy and moves forward. The forest in the tree, so there are two parts to it. A tree in a forest and a forest in a tree, the collective in one. The forest in the tree metaphor I'm using is what I call the quadruple C, the 4 C's. And the first is collaboration, which many of you have expressed here. The second is communication, and not have this only as an episodic event, but communicate with each other and across the platforms. Complementarity, Ubuntu. I am because you are, and the reason is I have gaps that you fill and you have gaps that I fill. And the last C of the quadruple C is celebration. And I won't even say another word on that because you've seen it in display here. And the award is a celebration. It's not just to an individual, but to the field as a whole. The second, and that's the last major point I'll make, is the second metaphor I see going forward is that this is going to be a marathon journey, a marathon run for paradigm shift. We need a paradigm shift, not just a system. There are so many levels of systems, but we need a paradigm shift. Kuhn said paradigm shift happens, who came up with the idea of a paradigm shift, when the old generation dies and the new one take over. But no, paradigm shift starts and takes a long time till eventually happens. And there are a number of applicable quotations that speak to that. The African-American civil rights activist Florence Kennedy, she was African-American. In my view, she was as important as influential rather, as Martin Luther King. Flo Kennedy once said, freedom is like taking a bath, a shower. You've got to keep taking it every day. And the reason, of course, you know, the environment. You can't say I took a bath this morning, so that's it for the rest of my life. No, no. The system never gives up. So we have to keep going. As Africans, Americans would say, we have to keep on keeping on. The second quote from Flo Kennedy was, let us organize and not agonize. Because so much of what we stand for can make us cry every day and maybe not even get out of bed. I know my time is up, but I'm done almost. And the third quote is from Martin Luther King, which has to do with paradigm shift. He said, philanthropy is commendable, but it must never forget the circumstances and systems that make it necessary. It's like a disease. You can't just treat the symptoms. And our dearest sister, Oga Patapata, Natalia Kanem, who is a medical doctor, by the way, trained, who attests to that. And then the third or fourth quote is by the Austrian Jewish philosopher long time ago, Friedrich von Hegel. And this is to the grant makers in the room. He wrote a long 21-page letter to his niece. And one of the opening statements was centuries ago. The golden rule is to help those we love to escape from us. So those who give money out to those they love or those grantees that they really want to support must ensure that the grantees are not dependent on them or one grant away from extinction. And the last, but I don't have time, so I'll leave it for now. I just refer you to it. It's a poem about memories, legacies, impact, and having a healthy appetite for creativity. It's a poem by Sam Walter Foss, a famous American poet in the 18th century, called the Have the Calf Path. So what I'll do is I'll give it to the organizers, and maybe they can email it to everyone to read, because it really does speak to the future you are all going towards. My apologies for taking more time, but I'm done.
It is well. And before you go, Akwasi, before you go, please. You took a good amount of time, and before you go, Umi, if I may, Akwasi began his speech with an apology from their generation, and I wanted to take this as a healing moment to speak back to him from our generation.
Go ahead.
All right, so to your generation from mine, we release you. We do not hold it against you. We just ask that as you prepare to pass on the baton stick, you run alongside us so we can learn and we can grow and then we can fly. So thank you, Akwasi.
Thank you. Thank you. That's important because I bring a lot of hindsight, memories. I have some insights, but the insights are really from you guys. And foresight, limited, because my mind is always about the past. So hindsight, insights, and foresight require accompaniment, working together. So yes, and I'm sorry if when I apologize, it was really to say, you know, my generation messed up. I am one phone call away from, I won't mention their names, 5 current African presidents. And to tell you the truth, okay, you know what I mean.
Thank you.